in this event. hallways, kind of like you see at Walmart. They're going to be doing a lot of extra stuff to make sure that we are as sanitary as possible. And so that's basically our cleaning plan, but we do have more plans as far as student management, I think, that we're going to get to a little bit later.
Okay, thank you. I've read your plan. I looked at it in detail, but one of the questions I'm still getting, even though it is in your plan, is will visitors be allowed on campus?
We are going to extremely limit visitors to the classroom. Parents, it's going to be when you get there to drop your student off at the first day of school, you're going to drop them off. And we're going to take them from the car and take them into the classroom. Now that's something new for elementary students, and it's a little scary for parents, and I think it's a little scary for students, and it's definitely scary for teachers and administrators. But basically the hug zone is going to be in your car, and we're going to bring you out. We hope that you do not come up to school and drop anything off that's not a major emergency. If you have medication, stuff like that, of course, we're going to let you come into the front office. But there's not going to be any eating lunch with your student until we truly believe that we are either COVID-free or there's a cure or a vaccine that our students are taking. So a very limited entry into our buildings to keep not only our students safe, but our teachers safe. Because if I have teachers start going out, I don't have enough subs, and then I will end up having to close school for up to 1 to 5 days to do a total new cleaning and bring the students back to where the teachers can come back. And so it's just basically keeping all of us safe and secure as we possibly can.
With that, with parents maybe not being able to come into the schools themselves, what about extracurricular activities, football games, concerts, things of those nature?
Just like y'all, we're at 50% capacity issued by executive order by the governor of the state of Texas. And so if you look at the Tomato Bowl, it's an 8,200 seat stadium, take or give a few. And so we have 4,100 people show up. And so if you think about, I haven't done the season ticket meeting yet because that's a whole nother meeting, and I need to get school started first because our game's not till the 24th. But basically we're going to an online ticket purchasing system to where there's no cash changing hands between ticket takers and ticket sellers and the general public. And so you'll actually just get an app and buy the ticket. That's going to be the same thing for volleyball games. Band members, what we're going to be looking at is anybody that's a participant in any activity that their parents are going to have an opportunity to buy the tickets first. That way, it kind of gives them the special opportunity to make sure they don't get left out by buying a ticket too late. And so the ticket system that we're going to be using will actually limit the number of sales of tickets to 4,100 tickets at the Tomato Bowl. And then, of course, that'll be rationed if we go to the John Alexander Gym. Now, our middle school and high school are both going to be playing every football game at the Tomato Bowl, just because it's a bigger venue and we can get more people in. And then, of course, every game will be played at John Alexander Gym that we possibly can is for volleyball. And then basketball, and then hopefully, eventually, this is going to go away and we're going to have regular school. Maybe.
Hopefully. Okay, here's another big one. If I choose to enroll my student as an online student only, are they allowed to do extracurricular activities?
Yeah, we have made the decision as a school board and myself. I don't want to deny any student the opportunity to participate in something that they love. And that's a big number one for me, that you have to have engagement in school, whether if you're even coming to school or you're not, you still have to have some engagement into Jacksonville ISD or any school you go to. And so yes, the caveat being, you can't stay at home and do band. You can't stay at home and do athletics. And so you will have to come up to those periods that athletics and band are, just like you're not gonna miss a practice or you're gonna get kicked off the team. So it's still the same way. And then if your student is in another extracurricular activity, let's say you're taking welding. You can't do welding from home. And so if you have a high school student, you will be doing welding. You have to come to the school. So anything that's really hands-on learning, you will be required to come to school to take that course.
Okay, thank you.
But you'll be able to leave.
At the end of that class?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Beggs, while we're talking about extracurricular activities, what opportunities have you seen students that homeschool have?
First of all, sports is a big one for me because my husband started a homeschool sports program over 10 years ago. So we got all the sports. We've grown from, it's a Tyler area, but we have people all around. We've actually just expanded to Longview and areas around there. We have bands and orchestras and sword fighting and horse riding and art classes and just all kinds of stuff I don't even know about.
Right. Do you have any ways that you make sure your kids do have some social interaction outside of sports?
I've never had to worry about that.
Okay.
If anything, I'm a member of the Tyler area homeschool group, and honestly, you have to be careful not to overcommit. It's real easy to join all sorts of events and programs and stuff, and like you have to say no and make time for school too.
That makes sense. Dr. Kelly, I saw in your plan, pre-K through fourth grade is not being required to wear a mask, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. As a parent, if I decide I want my student to wear a mask, how do I need to address that?
We actually have bought what's called a gaiter for every one of our students, pre-K through 12th grade, and every one of our teachers, to be honest with you. And we are giving them to 5th through 12th grade. They're going to be at will. If you want one at elementary school, you can get one, or you can send your child with one. If you send your child with one, just make sure that they know they're supposed to keep it on, because we won't know if they take it off. You can try to talk to the teacher to say, I want my child to have it on, and let the teacher know, just like any other type of medication or procedure that your child needs. And therefore, we can actually have them somewhat enforce it. But yeah, it's up to you as a parent to, if you want your child to wear a mask, wear a mask.
And then you answered this a little bit, but you talked about you will be sanitizing all manipulatives and lab equipment and things like that in between uses, correct?
Yes, as we change classes, most manipulatives will be individual at the elementary levels, and then at the secondary levels, of course, you share beakers and all that kind of science stuff, and so they'll be cleaned with alcohol swabs as they change classes.
Okay. Ms. Beggs, I'm going to ask you another question. When you decided to homeschool, who actually provides the curriculum you use?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and where do you begin to find that?
Oh, my goodness. There's so much stuff out there. I guess my oldest is 25 now, and we started when she was 4 or so. There are so many options as far as online. I think the public school system actually has a free homeschool program, K2 or something, I don't know for sure. But early on, I would check with the Christian bookstores. A lot of times they had someone on staff and could give advice, but it's really expanded so much. Yeah, lots of stuff.
Okay. All right, Dr. Kelly, I'm going to ask one that would have concerned me. I'm asthmatic, so I tend to cough year-round. If I have a student that's asthmatic and has a chronic cough like that, when I start looking at that self-screen, I'm going to have to say yes to a cough every single day. How do we look at handling those kinds of situations?
Yeah, what we are asking parents to do is do a self-screening that you know your child's medical reasons and what they have. And if they have a runny nose every day because they have allergies, well, you know that that's a natural aspect of his health or her health. Same thing with asthma. If they're coughing, you know that they're coughing, and so you're passing the self-screening on. So that's what we're telling our teachers, the same thing, that if you have, Lisa is a great example of having allergies, and so she comes in and she's sniffling and coughing and sneezing, and we know she doesn't have COVID, but what she has is her natural allergies that we've known she's had, or at least I've known she's had for the last 5 years. So the self-screening is the most important thing that we can ask parents to do. And if it's something unusual that your child doesn't have, your child unusually doesn't have a fever, unusually doesn't have a cough, or unusually, runny nose, diarrhea, whatever, if it's not a usual health issue, then we ask you to keep the child at home. And if you choose to go test your child, you choose to go test your child. Something that I heard today on a superintendent conference, a Region 7 superintendent conference, and of course it was virtual Zoom, was that a local area school district has secured an outside testing company to do COVID testing for free on site at their campuses. And so we're going to be looking into that. I'm not saying that we're doing it. That's just that we're looking into that. And so it would give an opportunity for a parent to have a swab right there. And we do have registered nurses that are able to do that.
that would be a great resource if that happens. This is another hypothetical situation. I send my student in person on campus to do school. But at some point in the semester, they have to quarantine, whether they catch COVID or they're exposed. How is that transition for that student going to happen from being in person to, at least for a couple of weeks, having to be at home?
They immediately go into our remote learning system, which the ladies know a lot more about it than I do, but that's our platform where we're teaching students that choose to stay at home, and they'll go right on to that platform. What we're doing is taking our school curriculum, like face-to-face curriculum, and matching it to our home-based platform learning curriculum. That way, if a student does have to go out, they'll be on the 4th week of this subject, and they'll just go home for 2 weeks, and then they'll come back and pick it right back up. So they won't miss any of the instruction that happens for that 2 weeks that they have to go home. That's something that they have been working on extremely hard to make sure the pacing is correct and make sure the students are somewhat on that pace. So we're not getting behind if we do have to send students home. We could do remote learning for for all 5,000 of our students immediately. And so it's one of those things that because we have experienced this from March until now, at the beginning, we turned around in a week and gave work. I don't want to say it was awesome instruction, but we gave work and we gave opportunities for learning at the house. Since then, we have been building our curriculum, working with the Texas Education Agency to bolster our curriculum, working with outside companies to bolster the curriculum and make sure that our scope and sequences are working. The teachers report on the 10th, and they'll also be working very hard at home for home learning and in-class learning until the 18th when the students arrive. So there's a lot of opportunities. If a student goes out or if I have to close a school or a classroom, that the learning will continue and continue at the pace of in-class learning.
Okay. Well, looking at that, if you have to close a campus or we send a student home, maybe they chose to come in person because they don't have the technology at home. Mm-hmm. Is there going to be any assistance for that? For example, we live in the country and our internet is horrible and there is not another option. Right. Is there a workaround, or do y'all have
Right now, we don't have enough computers, laptops to send home right now to students that are choosing to do home learning. About 25% of our students are making that option. We have on order, we started an initiative to give 7th and 8th graders computer or laptops, and then we were going to extend that to 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders as they move through the system and go to a one-on-one computer system. What we've also done is bought a lot of hotspots to where we're going to put on our buildings to where you can drive, if you don't have internet access at home, drive into one of our buildings or one of our building parking lots and have internet access just like you would at school. We're also going to start, as soon as we get those hotspots, working with churches, working with local businesses that don't mind putting these hotspots up, that are Jacksonville ISD hotspots, and it basically only costs the building owners just the electricity to run the hotspots. So it's not a big cost, but it really will help the community. I want to tell you that Senator Nichols and the state of Texas is really doing a major drive to provide internet access outside of our school community, outside of the city of Jacksonville or any cities. Cities make business deals with Suddenlink or whatever, and then that's who provides your high-speed internet access. Outside, rural, they don't make enough money, and so they don't do that. And so that's how we got telephone services out in the rural areas. It took lawmakers to come in and kind of force, if you want this contract, you're going to provide outside internet service to the general community that does not necessarily have it. And so Senator Nichols is really pushing this opportunity and options, and I think you'll see something big go through at this next legislative session to push that forward. Okay. It's just not going to help this year. Sorry. Our laptops aren't getting in here until I think sometime in November, and then we got to turn them around, get them up and running, and get them in the students' hands.
I understand that. Looking at the online learning, what platforms are you going to use? I saw there were 2 different platforms based on age. One I was pretty familiar with, one I was not as familiar with. So what is that going to look like?
I'm going to let Sarah and Lisa answer those questions.
So for pre-K through 4th grade, we'll be using Seesaw, but it will be in the children's Clever accounts. So they will log in, That's where they'll be able to access everything from there. So the Seesaw activities will be there. There will be opportunities for the teacher to have her morning meeting. If we want in the morning, we could possibly do that remote, but make it live to where they are having connection with their friends and their teacher. We're doing everything that we can to mirror what it's going to look like in face-to-face, so that when we do transition back, there's nothing lost and it's just a seamless process. So Seesaw is the platform that we will be using for pre-K through 4th grade.
And all 5th grade through 12th grade currently have email through their Office 365 accounts, and in there they have several different applications that they can use, and one of them is Teams. And so all of their work will be assigned through there. There is also a component for live streaming, and they can log in during that class and, like Sarah said, participate with their classmates, or they can choose to look at a recording later and do their work at a different time.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of our students that are choosing to stay home are 11th and 12th grade students who, for whatever reason, are choosing to work and choosing to work during the school day where they would be coming in to here. And so they actually have an opportunity to help our community by being laborers in our community, but also complete their work. And so that's really the biggest population I see right now that's choosing to stay at home.
Okay. Well, to piggyback on that then, I've had a parent ask about looking at the plan. It says that elementary students have to be supervised by an adult for their online learning. I completely understand that. I taught elementary for a long time. Would it be possible if they have a sibling that's an 11th or 12th grader? Is that sibling allowed to be the, I guess, supervisor for that day?
We're not going to be checking IDs on who
Okay.
supervises the students at home.
Okay.
That's the simplest answer I have.
No, that sounds great.
That's a parent decision.
Okay.
You know, it could be a 14 or 15-year-old if it's a mature student and stay at home with their 5 or 6-year-old. So it's up to them.
All right, Ms. Beggs, I'm going to pick on you a little bit now. So we've heard a little bit about how they're going to handle instruction during the day. What does your typical day look like as far as time commitment academically?
Okay. It looks different over the years according to how old your kids are and how many. With elementary children, I'm more on, of course. They really can't do school without supervision. So I'm very interactive with them, but it doesn't take 8 hours, Also, one of the main things I really love about homeschooling is, and when I say this, it's not a set rule that every homeschooler does this, that, and the other, but optimally, a homeschooler has the opportunity to learn how to educate themselves, and I don't mean like you just leave them alone, but they learn how to learn, and that has been very valuable. So as my children hit junior high, it starts, we kind of start loosening up, and I'm, more overseeing. And really, by the time my kids are in high school, they're doing their chemistry and physics and stuff on their own with my oversight or, whip, whatever is needed. But it's really flexible, and it depends on what your child's needs are, how their academic level, if they have learning disabilities. I mean, it can look very different. So you get to take as much time or use as little as you need based on your own children.
What subjects do you make sure that you cover, though, with your kids?
Okay, well, I'm a math major, so I think it's very important for math, and of course reading and writing, hello. So those are major for me. I personally will look at what the public school system is doing, and for my children, I recommend that. I'm also the high school coordinator for a homeschool co-op, and I do the same. I recommend that for them. But parents actually have an option of what they teach their children. There's not a, it's pretty loose, the requirements. But I advise mine, like if you've got people, if your children, if you want them to go to college or pursue something, then you really need to be mindful from the very, very beginning. I do want to add that A high school student coming into homeschool for the first time is going to have a more difficult time than a high school child that's been homeschooling all along, just because they're used to more interaction with the teacher, and you know, I do what they tell me, whereas you know, homeschool children often are kind of like let loose, unreeled a little bit at a time. And so ideally they take more responsibility upon themselves. Again, as a disclaimer, because every kid is different and every circumstance is different. So I will say that parent interaction is crucial. You can't just say, I'm going to homeschool and expect it to happen. You also, you know, here we are in a Christian setting. You can't say, I'm going to homeschool so my child's going to love God and serve Him all their life. That's not true either. You know, I've seen public school have excellent, outstanding, moral, good citizens, and I've seen homeschool kids that aren't. Let me just say it that way. So there's not a magic key, except I think it's the parent, actually. The parents are the magic key to their child's success, whether it be education or the moral path they choose, whatever. Sorry, I got off.
That's okay, thank you. Okay, here's one, and I know STAR is not until the spring. A lot can change between now and STAR, and a lot of this will be determined by the state. And I know you're getting probably daily guidance from TEA. But right now, do you have an idea of how you're going to handle STAR testing?
STAR testing has been defined by TEA probably about 2 months ago. We are going to have the STAR test. It's not going to be required for promotion anymore in 5th and 8th grade, at least for this next year coming up, which means you also will not have a second administration of the 5th and 8th grade STAR exam. If you choose to stay home and do remote learning, you will have to come to school to take the test. It's because of the security level that the test requires, so they don't get out. You're not going to just be able to download it onto your computer, or we're not going to send you a copy home. It's just the state of Texas absolutely will not allow us to do that. And so we'll have a space for you. We'll keep you socially distanced, and we'll tell you when a time span that you can come in. We do have the availability to not just give it on the one day. We can actually extend it over several days. And so that's going to help with the remote learning aspect of administering the STAR test. So even if you do remote learning and you're part of JISD's remote learning, you're still going to have to come up to school eventually. And we're going to make that as safe and secure as possible, as you would like it at your house. We're going to try to make sure that they are socially distanced, and everything's going to be clean. And so hopefully we'll provide that safe learning environment and safe testing environment for the STAR. But yes, the STAR test is here. We're a little frustrated because they've taken the second administration of STAR away, and then we're going to be held to that accountability system, which that's a whole nother story.
Yes, that is a whole another headache on top of things. Ms. Beggs, with homeschool students, not online at home, but truly homeschooled students, what testing is required?
None, I
None.
think. Is that a trick question?
No.
That's a very true answer.
None.
No.
But I personally have chosen, and I know some other parents do, because you think, how's my kid doing? Are they going to fail? Am I a horrible teacher? Those sorts of things. So there are tests available, so you can kind of see how they're doing with other kids their age. But it's not required. But sometimes that is a good way to ease your mind, or make you go, ooh, I need to do a better job.
Right, that makes sense. Finally, if you decide to homeschool, what resources would you say are just absolutely the most important to make sure you have, or that you have access to? Is there anything?
You're asking me what resource do you need?
What resources do you feel are very important to utilize?
A curriculum?
A curriculum? Okay.
You need to have something and follow it. I mean, even as an educator, and I taught, and it's I love to teach. You can't just wing it. And Anyway, you need to cover the basics. You need to make sure if you want your child to be successful. So you want them to read and write. And I will say, reading is crucial. Like, if you can read, you can do everything. So you can't let them slack in, the basics. So anyway, resources, curriculum for sure.
Just a curriculum. Make sure you get a curriculum. Okay. At this point, those were the prepared questions. I took those from different questions I've fielded myself. I want to open the floor up. Is there anybody that might have a question that they want addressed?
Good evening. Thank you all so much for hosting this forum. I personally really appreciate the opportunity to just sit and hear kind of this whole dialogue and exchange. So I appreciate you guys offering this. If you don't mind, I have a couple of questions. My first question is, and forgive me, I walked in 2 minutes, I think, after you all had started, so if you address this, I apologize for asking you to repeat it. But if a teacher tests positive for COVID, is it that that teacher's classroom will then, that all of those students in that class will have to be quarantined for the mandatory 14-day period?
We will be doing contact tracing with that teacher and seeing how close she got to her students. The teachers are going to be wearing a shield, and then possibly, I don't know if you can hear me through this, but anyway, they'll be wearing the shield, and then also have the opportunity, the choice to wear a shield and a mask. And so the shield is going to be very protective for our students and our teachers. Also, when they're doing one-on-one instruction, they're going to have some sort of barriers up, like sneeze guards, things like that. But basically, if this teacher tests positive, then we send that teacher home, and we do contact tracing, and or the county health department does contact tracing. I probably would shut that classroom down and see who else that teacher had contact with, and either send those people home for 14 days or take any other action appropriate as it's indicated in our plan.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, as a parent, if I chose to send my kids to school, I have two kids, one going into 7th grade, one going into 4th grade, so I'm at two different campuses. So if we chose to send our kids to school and a teacher tests positive, we may, as parents, have to make the adjustment kind of immediately that, we got a call, the teacher came down with COVID, and the kids are now quarantined for 14 days.
That's correct.
Okay, and there's no judgment on that. I just want to make sure
Right.
I'm
I mean,
understanding it.
if your child goes to a store and does the same thing, it's
Right,
the
right.
same health restrictions that we are all following.
Gotcha. What about with a substitute teacher? So substitute teachers go from campus to campus, right? And to be honest with you, when I think about it, it almost makes me shake. Like, what do you do if a substitute teacher comes down with it and they've gone from campus to campus, the whole contract tracing thing?
Yeah, usually in the same day. They don't transfer to campus, and hopefully they would have the symptoms and actually know they have a symptom and choose to stay home by doing self-screening. If they don't, once again, it's through contact tracing. We find out where they've been, and they will tell us where they've been. The county health department is supposed to assist us with that. We also have cameras pretty much everywhere except in the classrooms, to where we can follow a teacher and or a student that has been identified and see truly what their connection is. Now, we're hoping that if a student or a teacher are within 6 feet, they either have the shield on and the mask, especially at the upper levels, that's non-contact. It was just redefined by TEA today that that's non-contact. And so what we can see is, do students have their mask on? And then does the teacher have her shield on? And they have, even if they got within 6 feet, it's non-contact. Okay. And so, but we will still tell the parent, this teacher has it. And so it's up to you if you want to take your child home and or get your child tested. Okay. But we will tell you what happened, but we're also in contact tracing. If I have a mask and Sarah has a mask on and we were within 6 feet of each other for more than 15 minutes, it's really not contact as defined by TEA and local health officials.
Okay, I follow that.
So keep your mask on.
Long and the short of it. Okay, and one last question, at least I think it's the last question for now. Personally, I'd love to send my kids to school and have them be in that environment. Both of our boys are introverts and can live in their own world quite comfortably, and we need to get them out and socialize and interact with other kids. that being said, and again, no indictment and no judgment against the school district, I'm a little concerned, not a little, I'm concerned about sending them, because after speaking with both principals at both schools, everybody's acknowledged we can't socially distance within the classroom. We don't have the space to keep the kids 6 feet apart. My fourth grader is going to be in a classroom where the kids may or may not have their masks on. He too has a history of asthma, and so I've got to take that into consideration. And then as far as I'm hearing, there's not going to be necessarily any safeguards or barriers around the kids' desks individually. And I get it, it's cost prohibitive and we can't. So what do you say to a parent that's having that concern like myself? How do you persuade me that, and not to persuade me, but give me comfort in knowing that it's okay to send my kids to school?
I'm going to tell you, my first thing is it's a parental choice. And you know your kids better than anybody else to know what kind of ailments they could have if they did come down with COVID-19. As we've said before, I mean, we are cleaning. We are trying to use masks, especially at elementary. We're going to suggest by buying them for the students. And maybe it'll catch on and it'll be a cool thing, because it is a pretty cool JISD mask. I say mask, gator, you pulled up. And we're just trying to convince everybody to wear masks, wash your hands, and make sure that the classrooms are sanitary, and they don't really share a lot of stuff. And they have limited contact with other students, especially at the elementary level. Your child is going to be around, I say 22 students, but we have 20% of the students that are actually staying home, and so a class of 22 may only have 18 or 17 students in it. And so the class then grows in space. And then the teachers have, I was being told that one teacher in the news tonight in our district, they actually had different levels where their child's desks were at different levels. Now, I haven't seen the classroom. I'm interested in watching the news tonight to see it, but I thought that was a good idea. And so the teachers are being very ingenuitive to try to make sure that our students are safe. But once again, it comes down to how do you feel, as a parent, to be sending your student to basically an institution with a lot of students and possibly a lot of contact. But in fourth grade, I can speak more to that. They're going to be together, and they're going to do PE together, and they're going to do music together, and they're going to go on recess together, which would make me feel a little bit better as a parent, that my contact tracing is a little easier. They're going to be brought in through different locations, and so that might be a little an issue for some parents at the beginning, to where, okay, this group of kids being brought in from a different door, and all of our elementaries have, I don't know, at least 8 different entries that they could or could not be used. And so we're trying to keep the kids away from each other as much as possible, but still have a good, fun classroom environment.
Any other questions?
I'm monitoring our online questions, and someone has asked, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what you're just saying, for a parent that has truly decided to homeschool, what steps does JISD recommend, or if any?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
For a parent that has truly decided to homeschool, what steps does JISD recommend, if any?
If they truly homeschool,
Yeah.
like they're
I
not
guess,
enrolled in
they're
JISD, they're not doing
withdrawing-
remote learning.
Yeah, they're withdrawing.
Get a hold of her.
Yeah.
I was going to say, that would be a question for Ms. Beggs.
Absolutely.
Then, if they,
You go to the homeschool network and
And
talk
so
to
if
people
you're-
like this, and they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a very long time. There's I think a pretty solid homeschool network in the Tyler area that feeds into all of these districts. And I think that if that's your choice to make as a parent, find your local homeschool network. I think Google it, and then you'll figure it out. It's pretty solid, and it's out there. And there are a lot of opportunities for homeschool kids to be socially interactive.
Right, we have co-ops, I know even here in Jacksonville, I'm sure, co-ops and programs and groups that meet where you can, we're facing the same thing at my co-op, like, all these, oh my goodness, all these things we have to think about, and interaction and planing and all that. There are resources and help that you can find, even if it's online, but lots of networks. The biggest organization in Tyler, and we've got, I don't know, thousands of people in, is TACHE. It's TACHE. And that would be a good organization to approach and educate. That's kind of like our umbrella group. And then we have, lots of homeschoolers from all over that are involved in TACHE, but they can find out about the different co-ops through that and all the different things available. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, I guess she kind of followed up and said, like, do they have to officially withdraw from the school?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
There's a homeschool withdrawal form that they need to fill out. I think it's at central office, or is it their school? The registrar at their campus.
Do we have any other questions?
Okay, so y'all typically, and this is going to be a little weird, but y'all have liability waivers for when parents allow their children to go on field trips for the schools. My question, which I'm sure there are probably parents who are wondering the same thing, will y'all require a liability waiver to be signed for the children who have to wear a mask if anything happens to them on campus while they're wearing the mask, that the school districts cannot be sued or held liable for, any injuries that may happen?
The school district has governmental immunity to almost any type of lawsuit based on slips and falls, suffocation that happens on the campus, broken arms, that kind of thing. And that's just a governmental entity which we are. Only thing that we are liable for is transportation, and that's why you sign those just for if you get on one of our transportation systems, a bus or a van or one of our cars or Suburbans, that's what makes us liable, and that's what we can be held financially liable for. Anything that happens within our school walls, really we are not held liable for those instances.
Okay, another question that parents are probably going to have, if their child has asthma and they're in the upper grades where a mask is required and they have a medical exemption, how is the school district going to handle that? Are they going to force them to do distance learning and not allow them to come on campus?
No, we're going to treat them just like any other ailment. If you have a doctor's note saying that you absolutely cannot wear a mask, then we will honor that request in face-to-face instruction, but we will do our best to socially distance your child or the child that has asthma and the doctor has recommended, kind of like a prescription. I mean, if your child needs prescription medication, we are going to give that medication to your child every morning or whenever we're supposed to do it. And so basically, if there is a true medical reason and you have a doctor's note, we're going to still try to space you out. I'm going to tell you, we're not going to wear masks all the time. If we are socially distanced, the student will be able to pull down their gaiter or mask. If they're not, we're going to ask them to put it up. And if they're in the hallways, we're really going to ask them to put it up. But they're going to have to sit down at the high school and they're going to sit down with 3 or 4 students at a table to eat. They're not going to have masks on because I can't eat with a mask.
So
I
with
tried.
recess, since they're going to be so close together, are you going to mandate the mask like during recess or PE since there's going to be such close contact, or how are y'all going to work with that?
Okay, so in the secondary level, you do not have to wear a mask if you are exercising. So right there, our band right now, they can't wear a mask and play their instrument. And that's everywhere from 5th grade up. Elementary students obviously are not required to wear a mask when they go outside. And there's going to be a lot of outside instruction. You'll see a lot of that at Nichols and the elementary levels, more than you'll see at middle school and high school. But the mask thing is going to be reasonably enforced, and it's going to be to where if we are social distance, you don't have to wear the mask. But if you're not, then we're going to ask you to wear the mask.
Okay, and I'm going to go back to one more thing, and I'll leave you alone. If there is a family who claims religious exemption on the base of wearing a mask, their religion, it's against their religion, how are y'all going to handle that? Because a doctor can't write that exemption. So what are y'all going to do there?
Bring me the literature that says they can't wear a mask.
Okay.
Well, I say me, the principal. Yeah, then the principal's going to call me. Then I'm going to call our attorney. That's how it works.
Do you have any more questions? Okay. All right. Well, with that, before we end, I'm going to give you all a chance. If you have any closing remarks or things that maybe we didn't cover that you want to make sure you address, I want to give each of you the chance to do that.
There's a few things that I would like to address, and they're not big. Bus transportation, we have gone away from, I don't know if you ever ride the bus, but we've gone away from the exchange where all of our buses, or the majority of our buses, go to middle school, and then all the kids jump off the bus and get on another bus. That is COVID-filled for me, and so we did away with that. I also feel that the school bus is a very tight space, and so if you have any means not to ride the bus, I would bring your child to the bus, or I would try to get into a carpool system with a very few number of students in the carpools. That's going to be the biggest issue for me. We actually had to change the start times and end times for a lot of our schools to be able to do that type of bus transportation, so we're isolating certain kids on the bus. If I'm going to do that in the classroom, I thought we need to do that on the bus transportation system. And so if by any way, means, or force you can get your own child to school, that's probably the best health-related system that I can ask you to do. And then self-screen. Self-screen your child. Our teachers are going to self-screen every day. Right now, to walk into central office, we all self-screen before we actually get to our office. And then we wear masks when we leave our offices. And if I see somebody not complying, then we have a discussion about not complying. And that's just like the principals are going to have discussions with our students about not complying. And so if you can just talk to your child 5th through 12th grade to say, wear your mask, I think that limits your contact. And so you are no longer in a contact zone, and so you can stay in school. And if you want to stay in face-to-face school, that's what we're going to have to ask you to do. If you want to get sent home, don't wear your mask, because I see one teacher gets within 5 feet of a student, and the student's not wearing a mask. That is immediate contact, and that student has to go home for 14 days.
Yes. Here, really quickly, let him get the microphone so it picks it up on the feed.
You mentioned changing the start times, and it jogged my memory. I did see, like with elementary mainly, where it was you can start dropping your kids off at 7:15, and then they're going to start instruction at 7:30, correct? Okay. How are we handling breakfast for elementary right now for this upcoming school year?
Sarah?
So
You
for
look anxious to
elementary, we're going to be eating in our classrooms. So it'll be a great time for the kids to connect socially. We'll be practicing safety protocol, of course, but it'll be a good social time for our kiddos to eat breakfast together.
And just a reminder that now all students will be eating breakfast and lunch served free through a very good program with the state of Texas and the federal government. So anybody can get it. And so basically we're going to be handing out breakfast to everybody that comes into the building, pre-K through 12th grade. Just doing it different.
I would like to say that if you're serious about homeschooling, you need to consider the cost, because financially there's a cost, time-wise there's a cost, but I also want to say that doggone, for me, it was worth it, and it can be for you, but I just want you to know there's a cost. You are giving up something. You are making a sacrifice. So anyway, you gotta think about it.
One of the comments is asking if we send our kids to school because our kids learn better person to person teaching, and we are both working parents where we can't teach till late, how are the kids going to check into their accounts before 5 to not be counted absent?
They actually will be able to check in before midnight. So if they've checked in and done their assignments before 11:59, they'll be counted present.
Thank you.
Just like filling out your request form, whether you are going to be homeschool or not homeschool, but go remote learning or face-to-face, that is 11:59 tonight. And then we choose for you, which would be face-to-face instruction.
With that, the only thing I want to add is that as a parent, I will say I read through your plan, and it is a very well thought out plan. I'm a little bit of an education nerd, so I've been reading the plans from all over the state. It's interesting to see how the different service centers have provided guidance based on areas. But I feel like y'all have done a very good job laying out a very thorough and well thought out plan. But as you start making decisions about your kids, What you choose today may not be what you decide to do tomorrow. I will say we've had several different options throughout our parenting career, as you would say. We've done public school, we've done homeschool, and in both times it was the absolute 100% right choice for my boys at that time. But it's not necessarily the right thing the next year. And so don't feel like if you pick one way that you're stuck there forever and you can never go back. The other thing I'm going to say is I can't tell you what the right decision is going to be for your family. Every family's in a different situation, has a different set of challenges to overcome. And so our hope was just to give you information and that you will be able to make a better decision by 11:59 tonight for your children. And that was really our
And then-
hope.
I do have one more thing also.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make you aware that our plan is, like Dr. Kelly said, on our website. And every Tuesday and Thursday, we get new information from TEA, and that changes regularly. And so our plan is updated each time that we get new information. So even today, the answers that we're answering to you are the current answers. But if we have a meeting with TEA and we find out something different, we'll go online and update our plan for you, and you'll be able to see that that has been highlighted and that that's new information or that it's a change. And we also put the date on there for you so that you know the last time it's been updated. So we're giving you current information as of today.
And actually, TEA is actually slowing down now. They're going to 1 day a week, which is good for us. And when I was talking to our fellow superintendents in Region 7 today, there's a lot of mixed emotions about what we're being told and the number of changes that are given to superintendents to have to immediately change a plan. And so I think that the Commissioner of Education is slowing it down a little bit, and because he knows how close we are to having students on August 18th. And so we have to provide accurate information to our parents, and I think that we are close to, that's kind of a final plan. But what you can also be looking for is the individual school plan. And so high school is going to send out their plan to all their high school students, and then middle school, Nichols, and the 4 elementary schools. So you can expect an in-depth plan just from their campus. This isn't overall what we're doing in Jacksonville ISD, pretty much in every campus. And we try to figure out to let a parent know every situation that possibly could happen. But you can also you're going to get more information from your students' campus, and that's going to be pretty detailed as well. So expect that to be coming in. Yes?
One last question when you were talking about plans. With children who have IEPs and we're not allowed to be on campus, how are we planning on fulfilling those needs with the testing? And for example, one of my children, they're due in December for retesting, and there's accommodations that are needed and things like that. How are we planning on providing those for the parents?
So TEA at the beginning of June allowed us to start testing again. And so we immediately came up with our protocol that we would utilize for testing. It did involve sneeze guards and us sanitizing the places that we were testing when we were done. If the children were to point to anything in a booklet, they got to keep a pencil after. So we definitely had protocols in place. We would set up appointments. If the child was in remote learning, we would set up an appointment. We would screen, we would follow our protocol, and we would test and then go from there. As far as for the art committee meeting to go over the testing or to discuss the IEP, we want to be very accommodating. You are the parent, you know your child. We need your active input. So, you know, it could be through Zoom if that's what you preferred. It could be over the phone. Or if we needed to, we could make a very specific time, and we would follow safety procedures, and we could have that face-to-face if that's what we needed to do.
She runs a very good special education department.
On a similar note of that, you were talking about you can't bring anything into the school that's not necessary. If somebody wants to pack their own lunch from home, will you be prohibiting that?
Not at all if it comes in the morning. Do you bring it with you? Whatever. I didn't intend to say limit what you bring into the campus. If your books, whatever you feel you need that's legal, put it in your backpack and bring it on. And lunch being included. Now, we're not going to allow lunches being delivered during lunchtime.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, then, on that, thank y'all so much for being willing to participate today. Thank you to Central for allowing us to host it here. This gave us the ability to appropriately distance and be able to speak without our mask, and the ability to live stream, which allowed us to reach more families that way. The final thing I want to say is I will be posting this on our church's Facebook account, but I have started a Facebook group called Learning Support for Jacksonville Families. It doesn't matter what you choose for your kids. I just wanted a place where parents could go, hey, I'm having a hard time teaching this topic to my kid. Does anybody understand this? Or, because at any point you may end up in online learning, whether you thought that was your plan or not. Or I'm thinking about homeschooling. Is there anybody out there that's a homeschooler? Just a place to ask questions in a more private setting.
And Jacksonville ISD also has a question and answer section on our webpage. We have Mythbusters, in case you have a myth, and then we also have our instructional question and answers for what's going on with our plan and anything else that we're going to be doing in the future. And we answer, we're very responsive on those questions and answers.
Well, then, thank y'all for tonight. If any of you that are here have questions, I know we have our local homeschool co-op from Jacksonville has some things set up if you have questions. These guys, I guess, are around for a little bit, and then I'm available as well if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.